Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in. For today's webinar presentation, we'll be looking at our maintenance and housekeeping modules available in RoomKeyPMS. So the outline for today's presentation, we'll go through a few introductions at the top of the webinar. Then we'll dive right into the maintenance module. We'll look at the differences and similarities between the general and room maintenance modules in RoomKey. Then we will move over to the housekeeping module and do a bit of an overview of that module. We'll also talk about how you can use the housekeeping module with a PBX interface. And then we'll also showcase our housekeeping web application. We'll wrap up with a bit of instruction on how you can use these tools or when you can start using them, and then wrap up the presentation with a summary and Q&A. So diving right into our introductions for today, my name is Tasha Leclerc. I'm a trainer and implementation specialist with RoomKey. I am running this presentation solo today, but if you do have any questions throughout the presentation, you can click the Q&A button on the Zoom webinar application, and you can ask any questions as we go through the presentation. I will use the time at the end to answer any of those outstanding questions. Today's webinar is being recorded. This recording will be made available on our support website within 24 hours. If you've registered for the presentation, you will receive a notification when that becomes available on our support website. Those of you that are attending today's live presentation, you will receive a webinar survey at the end of the presentation. We appreciate any feedback you're able to give us. And if you have any suggestions for future topics, we certainly appreciate those ideas as well. Speaking of future topics, we do have our topic for next month is going to be diving into guest profile merging and also showcasing our profile match and merge tool with RoomKey. So getting into our topic for today, I'm going to start with the maintenance modules. And if you're familiar with RoomKey already, you may already know that there's two modules, the general maintenance and room maintenance. Now, for both of these modules, the concept is to schedule a task, print a report or list of those tasks, have the maintenance personnel complete those tasks, and then in RoomKey, you would mark that task as done. So both maintenance modules follow this same concept or process. The difference comes when it relates to what the task is related to. So for general maintenance, we're going to be talking about anything that has to do with the property, the hotel itself. It could be any office areas, any common areas within the hotel, as well as the surrounding grounds like a parkade or any landscaping surrounding the hotel. So those are all general maintenance items, and they're very customizable to suit your property and business needs. Now for room maintenance, this is actually specific to any guest rooms with a room number associated. So anything that has to do with a specific room number or multiple room numbers, you'll be using the room maintenance module instead. Now I'm going to show these inside RoomKey. Let me just open up our test database for today. Now both of these modules are found in the operations menu inside the maintenance module section. And when I hover my mouse over this section, you'll see that it does split into the general maintenance and room maintenance areas. I'm going to start with general maintenance, and this is going to open up a module on screen. So my general maintenance module appears as a pop-up on screen, and it will show me a list of any tasks that are scheduled and yet to be completed. So these are in a list of what is called unresolved tasks. Now, typically, you would come down to the bottom of the screen and print this as a report. So you can then pass that on to your maintenance team. Now, to create a task or schedule a task, you would click the New button in the bottom left corner, and then you can click this area. And this area is where you can customize those spaces to suit your business needs. So for example, we've got a swimming pool and ladies and gentlemen's locker rooms areas. So I could select one of those from this drop-down list, or I could create a new area. Very common one, most hotels will have a lobby. You can simply type that area into the freeform field here, and then the next time that you create a task, that new area, the lobby, will appear in the drop-down menu alongside the locker rooms and swimming pool. The next thing that you'll do is actually schedule the start and end dates for this task. You can have it set for a specific date or range of dates. You can do that for the current date or any future dates as well. So today, if I want to make sure that we are painting the trim in the lobby, I might schedule that for next week. So I will have that scheduled for Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. If I have a third-party company, maybe a painting company that's coming in to perform that maintenance, I can record that company name, contact info, and assign it to a specific person on my maintenance team. These fields are optional, so if you don't have that specific information, you can leave those blank and simply add the task information into the request field. So I simply want to repaint the trim in this area, the lobby. Now, the request itself will appear on the printed task list. However, any internal information that you want to record that relates to this specific task, you can place as a note. This will not appear on the task list, but it will be viewable here in RoomKey for any future reference. That field is optional, so you can leave that one blank as well, and simply click the post button in the bottom right corner to save that new task. And again, that print button is available to edit or to generate that report and pass it on to your maintenance team. Now, once the maintenance team has completed one or more tasks, they will submit their list with the tasks that have been completed, and we can now mark those as completed here in the maintenance module. So if the swimming pool chemical treatment has been completed, I can select that task, click the Edit button at the bottom of the screen, and place a check mark in the Done checkbox. That's now going to mark this task as done. When you click Post, that will now save that update, and you'll notice that that task is now removed from my maintenance history. Now, I can review any tasks that have been completed in the past if you move over to the Resolve tab. This is where it will show you a list of all of those tasks, including the one that was marked as completed today. Now you can, if a task was marked as done, but after review, it was not done to a level of satisfaction, you can mark the task as unresolved. So in this case, I can select this task, which is actually scheduled for a future date, June 28th. I'm going to click the Reset to Unresolved button in the bottom left corner, and that will move it back over to my task list. There we go, and back to my list of unresolved tasks. I can see that scheduled chemical treatment is now appearing once again, and it retains those original dates for this for the future there. So a very simple ticketing system that allows you to customize your areas to suit your business and keep track of any past or historical information under the resolved task list. When you're done in the general maintenance module, you can click Close or simply close that module window. Now, the next module, the room maintenance module, again, is found in Operations, Maintenance module, and Room Maintenance. When this module opens up, it will appear very similar to the general maintenance. The only exception is this component up at the top allows us to select a room number. And you'll notice that when I create a ticket, I do not have to specify an area. This time it is actually dictated by the room number that I select in the top portion there. Now you can record simple maintenance items in the room maintenance, things like fixing a squeaky door hinge or replacing light bulbs. However, I find that most of our properties will use this room maintenance area to place rooms out of order, meaning that the room is not available to sell or to check in a guest. It's actually taken out of inventory and taken out of availability for the front desk. So in order to place a room out of order, I'm going to make sure that I select a room that is not assigned, meaning that it is in vacant status here. And I'm going to select the New button in the bottom left corner. Very similar to how we would do a ticket for a general maintenance item, you're going to select the start and end dates for this task. I'm going to place room 205 out of order for one day, today, for deep cleaning. So I select the start date as today, and because these dates are inclusive, I'm going to also select today's date as the end date. So it's going to take the room out of order for today. It's not available to sell, and then it will be available to sell tomorrow, starting on the 22nd. Similar to the general maintenance ticket, if you have a third-party company coming in to perform the maintenance item, you can record the company name, contact info, and assign it to a specific person on your maintenance team. And those are optional, but what is required is information here in the request field. So I know that I'm taking this out of order for deep cleaning, And I don't have any optional notes, but I do want to take the room out of service. This checkbox below the note field is what actually brings that room out of service or out of order, out of the general inventory for today's date, and then puts it back into inventory for tomorrow. So when I take the room out of service and click save, you may get this notification if the room is assigned. So it'll let you know here, room 205 is occupied or assigned. I know that it is actually in vacant status, but it looks like it's actually assigned to an arrival for today. So if you do encounter something like this, you will need to move any rooms or any reservations that are assigned to that room. So I might just come over here to our tape chart. I can see room 205 is in fact assigned. I'm just going to move this reservation down so that room 205 is no longer assigned. And go back to my room maintenance module, room 205. Make sure I'm completing that new task for today's date, and take the room out of service. So now that I've moved that room assignment, when I click save, it will now save that out of order status for room 205. Before I mark that task as complete or show any more information in the room maintenance module, I just wanted to show you how the out of order status does affect both the front desk and the room inventory. So I'm just going to close out of that module. And because I'm here on the tape chart, I'm just going to click the refresh button. So that will update that room status for room 205. Here on the tape chart, this is a visual representation of what is happening in the hotel, including the out of order status. So for this room, that 205 that I placed the out of order status, you'll notice that the colored background for today's date for that room has changed to dark gray. In fact, rooms 203 and 206 also have this status set up on their rooms. So with a normal room, like room 210, I can right click and I can create a new reservation for this room, a walk-in, or assign it for an arrival. But for room 205, when I right click, I don't have any of that functionality available. So the front desk would not be able to assign anyone to this room arriving tonight. I could assign it for an arrival tomorrow or any future dates. If I move over to tomorrow's date, I can assign the room or create a new reservation. Likewise, for the other rooms that are out of order, I would not be able to assign the room or create a new reservation for those rooms while it's in out of order status. Now, the other area that you may see this setting affecting is the room inventory. And the best way to represent that is from the inventory calendar, which can be found in the operations menu, inventory calendar, or F12 on your keyboard. When I open the inventory calendar or click F12, it's going to show me a list of all of my room numbers or room types listed on the left-hand side. For today's date, highlighted in red, Wednesday, June 21st, I can see what rooms I have available in each room category. And if you go down to the very bottom of this column, the third row from the bottom will actually tell you your out of order rooms. So I have 3 rooms out of order today, 2 rooms out of order for the next 2 days, and then 1 room out of order for the remainder of the month. Now, if you'd like to know more information about what is happening with your inventory on a specific day, like today's date, you can actually click on this date header. So I just clicked on Wednesday, June 21st, and it will generate an inventory detail for you. Now, it is really helpful to see some of the reservation information at the top, but what I do also like to highlight, if I just scroll down here a little bit further, if you have any rooms that are being held for a block, like a wholesaler or group block, those will show up here as part of your inventory detail. And you also have your out of order rooms listed here. Not only will it tell you that there's 3 rooms out of order, but it'll actually tell you the room number, how long they're out of order, inclusive, and any notes, so that request field information. So I know why these rooms are placed out of order and for the specific date. So I'm just going to close this preview. Again, you can click the date header. I just chose today's date, but you can generate the same report for any future dates displayed here as well. Let me go ahead and close the inventory calendar. Now, a couple more things about that out of order status. I can leave that out of order status in effect as the date rolls over to tomorrow, and it will automatically put room 205 back into my inventory in dirty status. If you forget to mark a task as complete, when the end date occurs, it will automatically go back into inventory. You do not need to mark the task as done in order to put the room back into inventory. If a task is completed early and you want the room to be back in inventory right away, then you can actually update that status manually in the room maintenance module. So for example, if this task, this deep cleaning task was already completed for room 205, and I want to be able to sell that room tonight for a new reservation, I can go back to my operations menu, maintenance module, and select that room maintenance module. When it opens up, I'll make sure that I'm selecting room 205. Here I can see it's in the out of order status is showing up, and there's that task right now showing that it's a deep clean. But I want to mark the task as done, so I'll do the same steps I did for the general maintenance. You would click the edit button, click the done checkbox, and click save. So that task is done. I can close this room maintenance module and click refresh on the tape chart, and that will now update and show me that that room is now available to sell or assign for an arrival. If I right click here, I can do a walk-in or assign the room for arrival. You will notice that this room is actually in dirty status, so that brown background color. So that way the housekeepers have an opportunity to go into the room and just ensure that the amenities are in place for guest arrival. Now, speaking of some of these color combinations on the tape chart, if you have any questions about what these combinations mean, you can right click anywhere on the tape chart and click the legend option. This will tell you not only the color combinations for the reservations that are displayed on the tape chart, but it'll also show you the housekeeping statuses that are displayed on the tape chart for the current day, as well as any out of order statuses scheduled for the future. So now that room is back into inventory, I could sell it again. If we looked at the inventory calendar, once again, we would see that inventory detail automatically update as well. The last thing that I wanted to show you with regards to the room maintenance is just the historical information. So if I go back to room maintenance here, when you select print options at the top of the screen, if you'd like to print out a list of out of order rooms or tasks, you can choose to print select all rooms, so all maintenance, room maintenance tasks, or you can print just for a selected room. So a couple different options for printing room maintenance tasks, whether you're looking at a single room or multiple rooms. So heading back to our presentation here, now that we've seen the maintenance modules, general maintenance and room maintenance, let's now shift gears a little bit and take a look at the housekeeping. So just a bit of an overview of the housekeeping module itself and kind of the housekeeping process in general. For RoomKey, we follow 3 basic steps. First is the ability to print reports. Now, there are some optional features when printing your reports. You can assign attendance prior to printing a report, or you can also filter by status, things like if you just want a report of all of your dirty rooms or dirty vacant, things like that. But in general, you'll print out your housekeeping reports first. They are passed on to the housekeepers or room attendants who actually clean the rooms. And then at the end of the housekeeping shift, you are updating those room statuses. So 3 basic steps there to get those rooms cleaned and kind of follow that basic cycle there. So in RoomKey, I'm going to open up our demo again here. In RoomKey, our housekeeping module is found in the operations menu, and it appears right below the maintenance module. Now, what I like about the housekeeping module is it does have a shortcut key, so you can go ahead and click F9 on your keyboard. The housekeeping module appears as a pop-up on screen, and the majority of this screen on the left-hand side is taken up by this grid, which shows you a list of all of your room numbers listed lowest to highest. The housekeeping status icon indicates the current status of the room. Red means that the room is dirty. Yellow means that the room is clean, but not yet inspected. And then green means that the room is clean, inspected, and ready for check-in. Beside the icon indicates the occupancy status, whether the room is occupied, is due for an arrival, or due for a departure. It will also note if the room is out of order. And you can click and drag these columns to resize if you wanted to see more of the information there. So anytime that an out of order status or an occupied status appears, it'll let you know how long it's out of order or how long it's occupied. Now, we do have the option of assigning room attendants and assigning sections to your rooms. Those appear in these subsequent columns here. And then the remaining checkbox columns here are where we can actually update the status for an individual room. So whether the room is vacant or occupied, we'll have a checkbox there in the vacant column. And whether the room is clean and inspected, we'll also have those checkboxes there. Now we do have an additional option here for turn down service or turn column. If your property offers a turn down service in the evening where a porter or a member of the housekeeping team would stay on a later shift and offer additional amenities in the evening after check-in, that is considered our turn down service, and you can track any rooms that receive turn down service by placing a check mark into that checkbox there. Now, the information that is displayed on this grid is actually customizable based off of the filters on the right-hand side. So here is where you can choose that option of filtering your report or reporting information. If you don't want to filter any information, if you simply want to show a list of all of these rooms by status, you can come down to the actions section, and here I have a print icon. When you click print, because there are sections assigned to these rooms, so all of the rooms that start with a 2 are on the second floor, all of the rooms that start with a 3 are on the third floor, it will actually print this report grouped one section per page. So I've got a separate page for each section here. For each room, it will note the room number and the room type. It will state the occupancy status of the room. It'll let you know the housekeeping status, whether it's clean, inspected, dirty, or simply clean. If the room is currently occupied, even if it is a departure guest that is due out, it will note the guest name and their checkout time or expected checkout time. The default checkout time for this hotel is 12 noon, so that is shown as the default here. But if a guest is given a late checkout or alternate checkout time by the front desk, that will also be noted here for the benefit of the housekeeping team. For any rooms that are occupied, it will also note the number of guests. And if these rooms are assigned to a specific housekeeper or room attendant, their name will be noted here. At the bottom of each page, because these are groups by section, I will have total for this section in third floor. You can see I've got 12 rooms in total, and then I've got the breakdown between vacant clean, arrival clean, departure, arrival dirty, and if there is any out of order rooms as well. So you get a summary on the bottom of each page. Now, if you do not have sections assigned in your property, you will actually see this printed as all rooms on one single report. Let me just go ahead and close that preview here. Now, of course, like I said, if you wanted to filter any information, if you're passing these reports off to your housekeeping team, you would use the filter here. You might use the dirty filter is the most common one. The other thing that you can do is print out individual reports. Again, using the filters, this time you can use by room attendant or by section. Now, if you've set up sections like I have here, if you do not have sections set up, you'll have a blank space in the section column for each of those rooms. If you do want to assign sections, you can click the drop-down menu and select which section those rooms apply to. And if you need to set up your sections, we do have that shortcut available here in the top left corner. Now for your room attendants, you can also use this room attendant column to assign specific room attendants. If you have a new room attendant starting, you can simply type their name into this drop-down menu. And then as you go through, you'll see their name now appears in the drop-down menu automatically. So you can assign rooms to your attendants using this click method for each room type. Or if you would like to assign one room attendant to a whole section of rooms, you can actually do that on the right-hand side as well. Let me show you how to do that one. I'm just going to cancel those changes, and I'm going to select room attendant in the filter section. I'll choose a room attendant, let's say Mary. And I'll display the rooms that Mary has already been assigned to on the left-hand side, but I also want to assign her to the second floor rooms. So I'll click Assign Room Attendant to Section, and this is where I can assign them to an entire section. So I'll assign them to the second floor and assign. Now, when I'm looking at the rooms assigned to my room attendant, Mary, I can see that that includes both the second floor and the third floor rooms. Thanks. I can also print this as a report. When I click the print button in the action section there, that will print out 2 pages for Mary because they are grouped by section. So she has all of her second floor rooms on one page and all of her third floor rooms on the second page there. Now, these room assignments carry over one day to the next. So when you open up the housekeeping module, you will see which room attendants were assigned from the previous day. You can keep the same assignments, or like I showed you, you can use the filters for room attendant and assign room attendant to assign them to sections or specific room numbers if you'd like to do that in the individual column located on the left-hand side. Some other reporting options that are available in this housekeeping module appear off to the right-hand side. So instead of looking at rooms or room status information, if you wanted to see a preview of maybe some of the rooms that are assigned for arrival or departure or stayover, you can actually do that on the right-hand side. Anywhere that has a blue drop-down arrow can generate a report for you to use or pass along to your team. So if I wanted to see a list of all 8 arrivals I have scheduled for today, I can click the blue drop-down arrow. That will show me a preview of this list, so I can see that they all have room numbers assigned so far. And I can actually print this as a report and pass it on to my team, or I can keep a hold of that if I just want to make sure all those rooms are getting clean in time for those arrivals today. So that works with any of our other values here as well. So if you wanted to see a list of your checkouts, people that have already checked out today, or the ones that are still due out as a departure, those are also available. So now that we've seen how we can use the filtering and generate different types of reports for the team, the housekeeping team is going to go ahead and clean those rooms. And when the rooms are clean, depending on if you update your statuses throughout the housekeeping shift or wait until certain intervals, you will need to update the status in here manually if you do not have an interface or use the web. For that final step, to update room statuses, you can update individual room statuses using the checkboxes on the left-hand side. So if I know that rooms 201, 205, and 209 are clean and inspected, I can place the check marks in those rooms accordingly. Oops. So that was 201, 205, and 209. Perfect. So as you go through and mark rooms as clean and inspected, you'll notice that their icon does update. So this one is now showing as green. That status does not update for the rest of the RoomKey application until you click post. If you simply close out of the housekeeper without pushing post or cancel, you'll get this little warning message just reminding you that you need to update the status or save the changes that you've made so far. So if that ever pops up, you just need to come down to the bottom here to click post, or if you don't want to save those changes, you would click cancel. So that is available if your, like I said, if your property does not use any sort of PBX or housekeeping interfaces. This means that the housekeepers are maybe communicating with the front desk via telephone or radio to let them know that the rooms are clean. And the front desk agent can come in here. They can click F9 to open the housekeeper and then mark the specific room as clean and inspected. If you are updating the room statuses of multiple rooms at the end of a shift, you can use the function buttons at the bottom here of the action section. So here I have a checkbox for clean and inspected, and I can apply the status to all rooms. Now that does not change the status until I click post. So again, if you try and exit out of the housekeeper, RoomKey will just remind you need to click post or cancel in order to, before you can actually close this module. Some properties will choose to use this action at the end of the housekeeping shift to update the room statuses for all rooms all at once. If there's some rooms that are not quite clean, you can still come through here and remove checkboxes if needed, and then go ahead and click post. Now I have some more demonstration I want to do with this database, so I'm not actually going to mark them all as clean. I just wanted to show you some of those shortcuts that are available there. And of course, at the end of the housekeeping shift, we do recommend that the front desk or the housekeeping would come up to the reports section here and select room discrepancy. Room discrepancy is going to generate a report or show you if there's any rooms that are discrepant statuses, meaning that the front desk says that the room is occupied, but the housekeepers might say that the room is vacant. If there are any rooms that appear on that discrepancy report, you will need to verify if the room is vacant or occupied. For example, if room 407 was on that report appearing as vacant here by the housekeepers, it would appear in red status on this report. You would have a member of the front desk team or housekeeping team go to room 407 and confirm if there is a guest in that room or if it is in fact vacant. If it is vacant, but it is still marked as a departure, it means that the guest did not do a formal checkout at the front desk. So the front desk team would need to check them out of that room from the front desk side. If the room does still have the guest in it, maybe there's some guest items remaining, maybe just packed up, it means that the housekeepers would need to update their status and remove the vacant checkmark there. So let me just go ahead and close out of here and head back to our presentation. So like I said, those three main steps are covered in those manual operations there. Now, I did reference interfacing throughout that presentation there, and if you are operating with a PBX interface, these three steps, there are still three steps to the housekeeping lifecycle there, but instead of updating room statuses on the computer, the housekeeper would actually use the phone in the guest room. That way, the front desk team does not need to open up the housekeeping module to update the room status. Instead, the housekeeper, when they have cleaned the room, they would use the telephone in the guest room to dial in a housekeeping code that would automatically update that status in RoomKey. If you do have a supervisor or housekeeping manager that's coming through after the room is cleaned to inspect the room and maybe make sure that it has the appropriate number of amenities for guest arrival, the manager would also be able to use the guest telephone to mark the room as inspected. So that's the only difference with those PBX interfaces. With RoomKey, instead of the front desk having to update those statuses will automatically update and appear here in the tape chart or appear when the reservation or when the front desk is checking in guests. So if you are looking to interface with a PBX, you can certainly reach out to our team. I will have some contact information following today's presentation as well, if you would like to learn more about integrating some of those guest room or guest telephones to help facilitate that housekeeping process. The last thing with our housekeeping is I'm really happy to showcase our housekeeping web application. This is a tool that will allow you to access housekeeping information from a tablet or smartphone device. It does not require RoomKey to be downloaded, but it does require you to have a RoomKey login in order to access this app. So on any browser, any device that is connected to the internet, you would open up your internet browser and navigate to app.roomkeypms.com. Here I'm going to display it on screen. There we go. So when you arrive to this application, you'll notice that you're asked for your username and password. So in order to use this application, you will need to have a RoomKey login. You'll use the same login that you use for RoomKey. This is just going to take a moment to log in here. When you log into the application, it's actually connected directly to your RoomKeyPMS database. So at the top of the screen, you're going to have statistical information about how many rooms need to be cleaned, assigned and cleaned, what your occupancy is, arrivals and departures for the day, and then your percentages of clean rooms and rooms that are clean and inspected. Now, if you're using this application for the first time, there are some initial configuration steps that you need to follow. The first thing is to set up your team. So you need to assign people to these roles, which are called attendants and inspectors. Attendants are the housekeepers who actually clean the room. Inspectors are any supervisors or managers that are tasked with inspecting the rooms that have been cleaned by the attendants. Now, there's a couple different ways that you may choose to use this web application. It is ideal for any properties that allow their housekeepers and or supervisors to carry a smartphone or tablet device during their shift. It allows them to update room statuses from the application without having to contact front desk or manually log in and update it in RoomKey. So if you are allowing your housekeepers to have a device during their shift, you will want to set them up as part of your team. So on the left-hand side or left-hand navigation panel, you'll select Team. And this is where you can assign housekeepers as your room attendants. So here I have housekeeper 1 and 2. If you have any turnover in your housekeeping departments, you can edit or delete these housekeepers as needed. To add a housekeeper, you would select Add Attendant in the top right corner. And from this drop-down list, this will give you a list of all of your clerk IDs. So you have housekeeper number 3 here. When I click OK, I now have housekeeper number 3 added as a room attendant. Now you will also need to assign inspectors or your supervisors and management team. So you would click the Inspector tab here within the Team section. And again, in the top right corner, this is where you can add your room inspectors. So Add Inspector. Again, it's going to show me a list of all of those clerk IDs. And I know that I have a housekeeping manager. And we'll also add a housekeeping supervisor. So again, Add Inspector, housekeeping supervisor. Perfect. So this is part of your initial setup. You don't have to do this every single day, but you will need to do this the first time that you use the housekeeping web application. Once you have set that up already, the next thing that you would do is actually on a daily basis, and you'd click the schedule button on the left-hand side. This is where you will choose who is working today. Now, if you have the same people that work day over day or similar people that work daily, you can copy yesterday's schedule, and that will copy over the same people that were assigned yesterday into today's assignments. I don't have a schedule from yesterday in this database, so I'm going to manually add my attendance. I'll click Add Attendant. And again, it's going to show me the list of attendants that I set up on my team page. So I'm going to have housekeepers 1 and 3 working today. I'll add another attendant and housekeeper 3. If you add the wrong attendant and you want to remove them, so instead of housekeeper 1 and I want to have 2 instead, I'm just going to select housekeeper 1 and remove that attendant. Now let's go ahead and add in housekeeper number 2. Great. Now off to the right-hand side, I'll also want to add my inspector. We'll have both the supervisor and the manager assigned for today. Great. So on a daily basis, you will do that. Of course, you can use that shortcut to copy yesterday's schedule. So the same people assigned yesterday. When you click that button, it will automatically generate the same schedule you had yesterday on screen. Now to assign my rooms, I'm going to go to the assignment page. This is where, again, I have my statistics that appear at the top of the screen. But once you have your schedule set up, you will now see a list of attendants and your inspectors. So my supervisor and manager are listed here. To assign rooms to be cleaned to my housekeepers, you can do it 2 different ways, or you can start 2 different ways. First is to select the housekeeper, this little drop down or show more button in the top right corner. You can click and assign rooms. This will assign rooms specifically to this housekeeper, housekeeper number 3. And it gives me these filtering tools to allow me to search for specific rooms. So again, I could do it by section, just like we saw in the desktop version of the housekeeping module. I can also filter by status. I just want to look at the dirty rooms. You can select rooms individually, one at a time. Here, when you click on them, they turn blue to show that they've been selected. Or you can use the Assign All Rooms at the bottom of the screen. That will assign those rooms accordingly to housekeeper number 3, and I see them appear here under the housekeeper list. Now, the other way that you can assign rooms is going directly to the filtering tools on the right-hand side. This time, I'll just filter by status, and I'll assign all of these rooms. I'll assign them to my second housekeeper here, housekeeper number 2. Now, this scheduling is a little bit uneven. I have way more rooms assigned to housekeeper number 2. So if you'd like, you can reassign rooms once they've been assigned to a specific attendant. So if I want to take these rooms from the 4th floor and assign them, I'll select those individual rooms, use Actions, and this time I'm going to reassign the rooms to housekeeper number 3. And okay, so you'll assign the dirty rooms to the attendants, and then on the inspectors page, you'll want to assign rooms both in dirty and clean status so that they have an opportunity to inspect the rooms that have already been cleaned and mark them as inspected, ready for check-in. So again, you would do the similar method. This time I'm just going to use all of my clean rooms, assign those to the housekeeping supervisor, and I'll assign all the dirty rooms to the manager. So when the housekeepers or when the supervisor or manager logs in and looks at their schedule, they will see the rooms that are assigned to them. If you would like to have printed copies or printed pages of these schedules, at the top of the page here in the top right corner, this is where you can print all schedules. So you can print all schedules for all attendants and inspectors, or just the attendants or just the inspectors, or you can print just an individual schedule. Let me show you what this looks like. It's a little bit different than what we did see in RoomKey. So this time, instead of showing as a grid or list, this is actually showing me icons for each room number. So the room numbers are the rooms that are assigned specifically to housekeeper number 3 appear on one page. And instead of being separated by section, it just shows me all the rooms that are assigned to housekeeper 3. So that includes the 3rd and 4th floor rooms. It'll tell me the current status of the room. So I know that room 303 is occupied, that it is a deluxe king room type, and this guest is actually due to check out. So it's marked as a departure as well. So I know that I'm still waiting for that guest to be checked out of room 303. However, 305 is vacant and it's actually due to arrive today. So I might want to prioritize room 305 because I know that there's an arrival assigned to check in later on today. I'll make sure that that room is clean. So it goes through like that for each of these schedules. The next one, of course, is housekeeper number 2. And then for the housekeeping supervisor and the housekeeping manager as well. You can click print from this preview in the bottom left-hand corner, and that would print off those reports. I'm just going to cancel out of here just so that we go back to the app. Now, as rooms are cleaned, the attendants themselves, if they have the app, they can log in like I showed from the initial page. They can mark the rooms. So maybe room 303 and 305 are clean. Or sorry, just 305, that was the vacant one. The housekeeper would select the room, click the Actions button, and the action type is to update the room status. And they're going to update the room status to clean. And okay. So that housekeeping room status, as soon as they click OK, it now changes to yellow. It will also change to yellow on the inspectors page here for the housekeeping manager. And in RoomKey for the front desk team, they'll see that the room is clean, but not yet inspected. When the housekeeping manager goes through and inspects that room, they can select that room. And maybe they've also inspected another room. You can actually update the status of multiple rooms at once. So we could do that for multiple rooms here. Again, selecting them turns them blue, so you know that they are selected. The housekeeping manager would click the Actions button. And again, the action type is to update the room status. And they're going to update the status to clean and inspected. This time when the manager clicks OK, that status will update to green. I can see that here in RoomKey on the app. And you would also see that from the front desk point of view inside the desktop version of RoomKey. So that would be the process as the rooms are cleaned. The housekeepers and managing and supervisor teams, they can update the statuses as well. Ideally, at the end of the shift, all of the rooms are marked as clean and inspected, and that's the end of the housekeeping shift there. Now, we do have some overlap here in the app. Similar to the room discrepancies report, we do have a discrepancies page here on the left-hand side at the end of the housekeeping shift. Someone logged into the app would go to the discrepancies page, and ideally, you would want to see this notification telling you that there's no discrepancies found. If there is a room that is discrepant, that means that front desk and housekeeping say that it is either occupied or vacant. Again, you'll have a manager from the front desk or housekeeping go directly to that room to confirm if the guest is actually occupying or if it is in fact vacant. I like this page because instead of having to generate a report, it simply shows you the information on screen on your tablet or smartphone. The other enhanced feature that we do have in this web application is the tracking of activity, and that appears on an activity log. On the left-hand side, you would click the activity log, and this will show you all of those changes that you have been making throughout the last 24 hours. Or you can use the drop-down in the top left corner to see the last 7 days, or choose a custom date range if you're investigating anything further in the past. That's just from that activity log. Please note that this activity log is exclusive to the web application, so it does not track anything from the desktop version. So if you've made any changes, if you've assigned rooms in the desktop version of RoomKey using F9, that will not appear here as a change. This will only track the changes from the web app or web application. Of course, when you are done your shift here at the end of the housekeeping shift, you'll come up to the top and click sign out. If you forget to sign out, this will automatically log you out after 10 minutes of inactivity. So let me head back to our presentation here. Now that we've seen the housekeeping web application, if you're interested in getting started with the web app, you can contact our support team. They'll be able to enable it for you. In fact, now that we've seen all of the maintenance and housekeeping tools available in RoomKey, big question that we do have is, when can you start using these tools? I'm really happy to let you know you can get started right away. So if you do have any of those questions regarding the PBX integrations or our housekeeping web app, you can contact our support team to get started with those or find out more information. We do have quite a bit of information on our support website as well to show you how you can access these tools and a couple of different business scenarios for those as well. Just looking at wrapping up our time for today, I'm going to open up for a Q&A, and I think we do have a question sitting there. Perfect. So the question that appears in the Q&A is, do maintenance tasks have to be printed? You don't see a forward key to send them to a maintenance personnel. So the question or the answer for this one is that this application does require you to print your reporting. We don't have any integrations with any maintenance or SMS notification tools at this time. It is something that our development team is looking at expanding into, but at this time, we don't have any forwarding or notification tools available for the maintenance personnel. It would be via printed report only. Any other questions to our Q&A? Excellent. I've got a couple more coming in from Rose. She has asked if there's a way to use the app to find out if someone has checked out. From the housekeeping module, it would not show you that the guest has checked out unless you are looking at the printed schedule. So let me just open up the web app again. One thing that Rose is pointing out is that on these housekeeping or from the housekeeping app, it shows the room in dirty status, but you don't yet know if the room is occupied or not. So the detailed information like the guest name, checkout time that we saw from the housekeeping module is not available in housekeeping web. The only thing that you would, or the only occupancy information that you would be able to see from here is if you are printing off the schedule or viewing that print preview. So if I wanted to see for housekeeping number 3, I might look here at housekeeper number 3, do a print preview, and on screen or on your device, you would see that information here. If it's departure, that's all it's going to say. It's not going to show guest name or checkout time. It's just going to say that the room is still occupied and due out or departure. I do have another question, this time from Alex, asking, do they offer the housekeeping screen in Spanish? For the web application, the page itself, if you have a Spanish language plugin, or if you're viewing it from a Spanish device, it will show some elements in Spanish. However, the printed reports, everything will remain in English. And that's the same for the housekeeping module as well in RoomKey. Everything will display in English, and it cannot be translated to Spanish at this time. Oh, I have another question. This is from Lillian. If it's okay that you join late, no problem. You can review the recording when it becomes available online as well. So Lillian has asked, shall we get a recorded session of this presentation so you can go through it later? Absolutely. If you've registered, and obviously you have in order to join today's presentation, everyone does receive a notification when the presentation is available on our support website. That's usually done within about 24 hours of the actual presentation. So you should get that notification later this evening or early tomorrow morning. And that is actually true if you would like to join any of our future webinar presentations as well. So if you register for any of our webinars, you will receive notification when the recording is available, even if you're not able to attend the live presentation. So thank you, everyone. It looks like the questions have been answered. I'm just going to leave the presentation open for another 5 minutes or so, just in case anyone else is typing here. Just close that, and I'll just go back to our presentation. If you do have any follow-up questions, feel free to email me. I think my information is distributed after. And of course, if you have an opportunity to fill out a quick survey, I think it's just a couple of quick questions, 3, no more than 3. I do appreciate that feedback as well. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll chat with you next month for our next webinar.